Hello, MVPs, most valuable players. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Ashley, and I wanted to tell you about key cleaning and about Rubinstein and Franz Mohr. So the story goes, so I went to a Piano Technicians Guild, I've been to many Piano Technicians Guild conventions, and at one of these conventions I attended a class given by Franz Mohr, who's a very highly regarded piano technician. And he tuned for many famous pianists, many talented pianists. And he told one story about he was tuning for a Rubinstein concert, and he did his usual thing to prep the piano before the concert. Rubinstein approaches Franz Mohr after the piano is prepped and says, did you clean the keys? And Franz Mohr says, of course I clean the keys. I always clean the keys. And Rubinstein says, that's terrible. That I can't play the piano if the keys are clean because they're too slippery. I need more grip on my key tops in order to be able to perform. And so apparently he didn't want to continue on with this concert. So Rubinstein said, hang on, let's think this through. He came back with a can of hairspray. Now, this is a story that I heard from Franz Mohr. It's not a recommendation, okay? He sprayed the keyboard with the hairspray. Rubinstein tried the piano and said, that's great. I can play this piano now because there was a little more grip. So that is that story. And Franz Mohr has a book called My Life with Great Pianists. So feel free to look up that book and read his book about working with pianists as a piano technician. However, so have I ever heard anyone else complain about key tops being too slippery? It's not really a complaint that I hear about, although I have talked with other piano technicians who say that yes, you know, the newer plastic key tops, there's ivory and there's plastic, and then there's some other materials that have been used for key tops, and but most commonly today it's plastic, and that yes, it can get a little too slippery, and the reason why pianists prefer the ivory key tops, which are rarely put on new pianos today. There's some circumstances, but not very often, that they prefer the tactile feeling of the ivory key tops. And my understanding is that ivory key tops can absorb sweat, and it has a better feel for the pianist. But most key tops today are made from plastic. I have seen, I've attended some classes by Souder, who is, I think, 8th generation piano manufacturer in Germany. And he showed us a piano once at one of our Piano Technicians Guild classes that had key tops on it that were made from bone. And I thought those were fascinating. And that would also change the tactile sensation of playing the piano. So what I'd like to talk with you about today is about cleaning the key tops. I clean key tops when I tune and service the piano. I clean the key tops. They do get dirty. They get dirty partly because clients are nervous about cleaning the key tops and they want to make sure that they're doing it right and that kind of a thing. The best thing that you can do is wash your hands before you play the piano and after you play the piano. But if you want to clean your own key tops, by all means, that's fine. Go ahead. Here's how I clean key tops. I get a rag. This is a soft cloth. Sometimes I'll use paper towels, but what I have found is that paper towels they come apart kind of easily when you use them for key cleaning because they get stuck against the the sharps, and the towel kind of comes apart. It's kind of, well, not perfect. So cloth, I prefer soft cloth, and then I get the cloth wet, and then I squeeze it dry-ish. You know, it's not dry, of course, but I squeeze out the excess water, and then I use mild soap. So for example, this is like soap that I'm not advocating this particular soap. I'm just showing you that any kind of mild soap, any kind of mild dishwashing liquid is totally fine on keytops. So this is my own dishwashing liquid. Anything that's just not going to be harsh. You don't want anything harsh on the keytops, and I'll go into that a little bit later. So cloth, wet, squeeze it dry, a little bit of soap, not a lot of soap because it gets too soapy if you put a lot of soap on there. And then this is a action model for a grand piano. So this is the key top. Do you recognize that? And so normally it's facing you this way, of course. And when you press the key top, this hammer goes up and hits the string. So this is the key top. So what I do is you know, just rub the key top with the soap and just clean it that way. And if it's been a long time since the keys were cleaned, your rag will get kind of dirty. But if your keys are cleaned, you know, at least once a year, your rag probably won't get that dirty. And so if you know, if I'm your piano technician, I will be, and if you have your piano tuned at least once a year, then I'll be there and I'll be cleaning your keys. But if you want to clean your own keys, that's how I do it. You don't want to let any suds get in between the keys, and you don't want to let any water drip down between the keys. The keys are, as I mentioned before, key tops can be made out of plastic, which this is plastic, or they can be made out of ivory. The way to tell if it's ivory is usually there's a line in between the head and the tail. There's a little line here when it's ivory, and you can also see some grain when it's ivory. So if you get any water or suds in between the keys, it's going to affect the key stick. As you can see, this key stick is made out of wood, and water and wood don't mix very well. So you just don't want to get, you know, maybe a teensy bit of water might, you know, be okay, but, you know, certainly not drops of water, and certainly, you know, not lots of water and not lots of suds in between the keys. You want to try and keep that clean. There are other methods for cleaning key tops. You can also use this product here called Cory Key Bright. And Cory is spelled C-O-R-Y, and the Cory products are specific to pianos. I think maybe they make products for something else, but I know them as piano products. And this bottle for the Key Bright says, Key Bright Cleaner and Brightener, safe for use on ivory, plastic, wood, and computer keyboards. Now, I would not recommend that you spray directly on the keyboard, again, because you don't want to get anything in between the keys. So I would spray this on your rag. And sometimes if I want it, you know, I might get the rag wet, squeeze it dry, and then spray this on the rag. That might help it a little bit. The advantage to Key Bright is that it can somewhat counteract that slippery feel that comes with soap and water. The soap and water, I mentioned that because I'm recording this video in 2020, and according to what I've read, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, but according to what I've read, soap is the most effective thing against the virus. I could be wrong on that, but that's my understanding. So that's why I like to use soap and water, but the Cora Key Bright is great as well. On the ivory keys are made quite thin because ivory is pretty expensive. And so it's made thin to conserve the ivory. And so you can actually cause some damage if you get, water seeping in between the ivory and the wood. You can loosen the glue joint between the ivory and the wood, and you don't want that to happen. The plastic, it's less likely for the plastic key joint to the glue joint on the plastic to loosen. That seems to be more solid. The other thing is on ivories, because it's so thin and fragile, there's an edge here, right here, right there, that little edge. That's pretty fragile, and that gets chipped really easily. So when you're cleaning the keys, you want to be sure not to snag your rag on that, because that might chip. Plastics are much more sturdy. The other thing that can happen, this isn't necessarily something I would recommend for you to do, but this is something that your piano technician could do. When I'm rebuilding an action, or when I'm doing a major intervention on a piano action, the action is this part of the keyboard times 88. When I'm doing major work on the action, and I'm pulling the entire, keyboard apart, if it's quite dirty on the sides of the keys, I'll clean those as well. And you'll only know that because when you press down on a key, you can see the side of the next key. And sometimes you'll see that it's grimy and kind of icky. And the way that I clean that is through like some sort of either, 4/0 steel wool, very, very, very fine steel wool. I might rub that down. Anything to kind of, you don't want to take, significant amounts of wood off the key stick, because the key stick is balanced, very specifically balanced, and so you don't want to alter the weight of the key. So if you are going to take anything off the side of the key, you'd want to use just something very soft to just take off the dirt and not any of the wood. But that's something that your piano technician could possibly do for you. Different piano technicians do different things, and so you'd have to talk with them about whether or not they would do that, and it would also depend on whether or not it was bothering you, and that's all about personal preference. Also, regarding ivory keytops, I have heard, I've never tried this before, but I have heard that you can use white toothpaste on the ivories to help brighten them, because ivories do get yellow over time. You don't want to use the toothpaste that's, got the gel and the colors and all that stuff going on, just plain white toothpaste. And I've never tried it, so I can't vouch for it. I'm just telling you that I've heard about it. Another thing that I've heard regarding ivory keytops is you can use a little bit of like milk, like take a cotton ball, get a little milk on there, and use that to whiten the ivories. Haven't tried it, but I've heard about it. My brother, Craig Turner, who's also a piano technician, was admiring a client's ivories and how white they were, because over time they get yellow. And she said that she had a previous piano technician who suggested using the milk, and looks like it worked. But I've never tried it. And then I also read on the internet, which is not always correct, but I did read on the internet that you could use yogurt on ivory keytops. I don't know. I haven't tried that. I don't know. But apparently, like these milk products, there's some sort of reaction that helps brighten the ivories, not the plastics. I've never heard of using the toothpaste or the milk or the yogurt on plastic keytops. Just soap and water or Key Bright usually does the trick. There is occasionally a key top issue. I do recall there being a piano that had plastic key tops, and I can't remember, the key tops just looked funny after a while. I can't remember how they changed their shade, and I contacted the manufacturer about that, like, how do I clean this? And I believe, if memory serves, the manufacturer said that with those particular key tops that were made in that particular era, there was not a they've since they don't make their key tops like that anymore. Basically, we'll just put it that way. You can get all of your key tops replaced. So, for example, if you have ivory key tops and they're old and chipped and cracked and different colors, if you would prefer, a uniform look, you can have your key tops replaced. And that's it costs a different amount depending on what area you live in, who your piano technician is, et cetera, what they charge, that kind of a thing. But it could, it can be several $100s or more to replace a full set of key tops with plastic. Some piano technicians save ivory key tops, like little heads and tails of ivories, so that if an ivory does come off of a piano that has ivories, I can replace it. And the way that you can tell if a piano key top is ivory or plastic is that the ivory usually comes in two pieces, the head and the tail. So that's the tail and that's the head. And you'll see a line here that it's made in two different pieces. And that's just because the material is so expensive, they have to conserve how they slice it. You can also often, if not always, tell ivory because it's got a grain pattern to it. And you can see that grain pattern. May not always be super obvious, but if you look at different angles with different light, you can usually see that grain pattern. I have also heard people recommend using alcohol to clean key tops. I'm a little bit wary of that intervention because the alcohol can, on some piano finishes, can negatively affect the piano finish. And so, for example, currently today, when you see a shiny black piano, usually that's a finish made out of polyester. Decades back, when you saw a shiny black piano, that would have been lacquer. And then when you see, a brown piano that isn't shiny, that's, wood that isn't painted and covered in some sort of lacquer or polyester. But what I have seen is that if you drip alcohol on certain types of wood finishes, you can damage the cabinet, and you can damage that finish. It's possible to reverse that damage, but you just don't want to damage it in the first place. So, I believe that the Piano Technicians Guild recommends using rubbing alcohol to clean keys. And this was a recommendation that came out, in the spring of 2020 when we knew less about the virus and we were concerned about how to disinfect keys. I would just be a little more careful and cautious about using rubbing alcohol on key tops. My understanding is that soap is what works best at this point for the virus. And soap works really well, and for a lot of reasons, soap is good. So if you want to clean the key tops with alcohol, just be very gentle, be very, don't let the alcohol seep underneath the key top, because that can affect the glue joint. And don't let it get onto the cabinet, because that, might affect the finish, et cetera, et cetera. So be careful with using alcohol. I prefer soap and water or this Cori Key Bright. The advantage to Cori Key Bright is that it's specific for pianos, it's safe for pianos, and it gives you that nice tactile feel that pianists prefer. Another thing that ivory key tops can benefit from is direct sunlight. Now, the piano itself doesn't benefit from direct sunlight, so I almost hate to tell you about that, because I'm often telling my clients, move the piano away from the window, away from the door, out of direct sunlight, etc., etc., because wood is affected by heat, fluctuations in humidity, direct sunlight, etc. And so you don't want to, I've certainly seen pianos that have been damaged from direct sunlight. So I would prefer you not put your piano in direct sunlight. But that being said, direct sunlight can benefit ivory key tops. It does not benefit plastic key tops, and I have read that direct sunlight can hurt plastic key tops, but I haven't seen that myself directly. So that's just something that I've read. I'm not convinced that direct sunlight can negatively affect plastic key tops, but that's what I read. So if you're a piano technician watching this video and you have experiences that I either have said and you have a different opinion, or if you agree with my opinion, or you have other thoughts and ideas, please share them in the comment section. And for anyone, feel free to comment. Would love to hear your comments. I'll reply if I can. And also, I'd like to hear from you if you have any other piano-related questions that you'd like for me to answer. Please put those in the comments section. And if you found this video on key cleaning helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe as well. Thanks so much. Good to see you.